allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We are missing Mr. Johnson, correct? Who is in the Caribbean enjoying himself, and we welcome his return. I want to first, before I forget later on, thank everybody for the adjusted start time. It really is appreciated. And hopefully we can make our next event. But
do we get leftovers? Yeah, we're invited, right?
No, you get reciprocity when you have something to do. Okay.
Peanut butter and jelly, you know.
With that, I would move to item number 2, our routine applications, and I would call on our clerk, Mary Lee Kiernan.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move NW1, Nathaniel Witherell, $338,000, which is a release of conditions on maintenance capital.
I'll second that.
Item is moved in second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 11-0-0.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move ED2 from the Board of Education, $30,000, which is an approval to use regarding salaries, travel, tech services, field trips related to the teenager program that they presented to us at the Budget Committee.
I'll second that.
Item has been moved in second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 11-0-0.
I'll move BR1 from the Bruce Museum, $45,000, a release of conditions in connection with a server replacement.
I'll second that also.
Seconded by Mr. Pellegrino. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 11-0-0.
I'll move PW1 from DPW, $250,000. This is a release of conditions related to their highway maintenance program.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Pellegrino. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 11-0-0.
And I'll move PD2 from the Police Department, $44,177, which is a transfer regarding their data and word processing supplies.
And I'll second that also.
Item has been moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 11-0-0. Thank you. Item 3, Assessor's Report.
Good evening,
Good
Mr.
evening.
Chairman, members of the BET. I'd like to present the Assessor's Report for November 2013. Currently, we are in the process of working on compiling the 2013 grand list. As of the end of this week, we shall have finished the motor vehicle supplemental on our new quality data software, and we'll be able to present that to the collector's office hopefully by the end of this week or beginning of next week. So far, everything on the new software seems to be running just fine. And other than that, it's just we're continuing work as. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions? Ms. Tarkington, I'll accept the motion.
I'll move that we accept the Assessors Report.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Finger. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Item number 4, Controller's Report.
We have a new minute taker for any. Is this on? I know that I have Kathy Sider as the new minute taker, replacing Maria.
Welcome.
And
Welcome.
This is her third meeting, and I'm helping her and walking her through, and I got a little bit behind trying to take the minutes together with Kathy. Kathy attended the HR committee meeting and attended the BET budget committee meeting, and this is her third one, and she's on her own on the second cycle starting in December. And I explained that as soon as you learn all the faces, they're going to start disappearing, and then the budget, the different committees are all going to change faces, so you'll get used to it. The Controller's Report, a couple of highlights. Starting the annual financing, which we do traditionally in January, we're borrowing for the capital projects. The borrow date is going to be January 16th, with the note sale 11 o'clock in the morning and the bond sale 11:30 in the morning. We're going to do the credit reviews the week of January 6th. They have not been set yet, and I've started the process. I am going to start the process this week of putting together the official statement. Secondly, on the Comptroller's report, the year-end closing, we're in the process of finalizing the audit. We're just about done. We gave a preliminary draft to the Audit Committee last Thursday. I'm finishing up the management report, and the state and federal single audit should be done. We're well ahead of schedule. And then the third item, before I open up to questions, is if you'll notice, I'm starting to write the year 2014 in, and I want to take the honors of making the first mistake in Town Hall of putting the wrong year in under the retirement, where I said that the flash report for October 31st, 2014 is not ready. Obviously, it's not ready. So I take credit for writing the wrong first year, the year for the first time. I'll open it to any questions.
Are you anticipating a performance in 2014 like this year?
I hope so.
Mr. Finger.
I think I might have seen it, might have caught another 2014 reference under the internal audit, the last paragraph. I'm assuming the internal audit has conducted significant field work for this audit. This is about the harbor management.
That's number 2. Yes.
For 2013. And then I have a question, Pete, on retirement board. The last paragraph talks about the amendment that we approved last month. Is there a reason why it's not going to go to the RTM until January as opposed to December? Is it because we want to do it when the new RTM is seated?
There is definitely a reason. Between Larry Simon, Gene McLaughlin, and myself, we couldn't put the package together for the call, which was due last Friday.
Okay.
And I was trying to close out the audit and work on the other things. And we collectively, we had a better feel for January with the new membership in the RTM. But to answer your question, we simply couldn't make the cutoff for the call
Okay.
last Friday.
Okay.
We're still working on putting a package together in the explanos. Yes.
Pete, could you shed a little color under Superstorm Sandy update? The letter that we received September 17th from, I guess it's from a CPA firm. Expected, unexpected, common, uncommon, and how long? It seems like you're hoping to get compensated by the end of this fiscal year, which means June of 2014.
Correct. This was not foreseen. This has been reported to the Audit Committee on a monthly basis. This letter of September 17 came out of, I cannot say out of anywhere, but it created a whole new set of questions and a whole new set of demands on the internal auditor and the risk manager. And it's delayed some of the other audits, like the Harbor Master audit and some of the other audits that have already been finished. We expect this questionnaire and the work with the CPA firm to be finished this month. And we're definitely on track to close it out by the end of fiscal 13-14, meaning June 30th. The one area that we don't have assurances, and no one in the state does, is the FEMA reimbursement. The FEMA reimbursement, the clock doesn't start until we're done with the insurance recoveries. But we can accrue, like we did. We accrued $278,000 of FEMA revenues from last June 30th, even though we didn't receive it in time for the audit as a receivable, and we can accrue it June 30th, 2014.
Do you know if other municipalities received a letter from the AIG insurance also?
There's no one in the state that's got the claim the size of Greenwich. No one's even close. As far as that's what prompted the forensic review by the CPA firm is the size of the claim. Not aware of anybody, any other part of the state with. I don't have inside information to their dealings with the insurance companies.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Norton.
I'll try to address that. In response to that, it's not unusual at all to have a forensic audit performed when you have a claim that exceeds a certain threshold. I don't know what threshold is on this particular claim, which would prompt it. But it's quite likely that forensic audits are done when claims exceed a certain amount, and that's strictly the reason for it. And as Mr. Minorski has indicated, our claim is approximately $8 million.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything? I'll accept the motion at the
Second.
something like that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Let me just write down the vote here. Treasurer's report, item number 5. I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report. Seconded. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 11-0-0. BET Standing Committee reports. I'll call on Mr. Norton for audit, although your meeting was just the other day, so I'm not sure.
The audit committee met on Thursday morning. I didn't receive the minutes until over the weekend, and I just haven't had a chance to even review them. So I'm not prepared.
Good enough, good enough. I don't see any others that we have, which moves me to liaison reports. I don't see anything on that. Number 8, we have one report. I'm going to call it the Special Committee for the Parsonage Cottage loan, and that I'll call one of the co-chair of that committee, Mary Lee, if you would, on that one, item under 8.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of Mark Johnson, I just want to give an update on the status of our BET efforts with respect to item CD3 that came before the BET at our September meeting. And if you recall, at that September meeting, we voted 12-0-0 to postpone the item. The item was a request to forgive a CDBG loan made in connection with a 1995 set of transactions that renovated Parsonage Cottage. At our meeting, our chairman appointed a working group on the item, co-chaired by myself and Mr. Johnson, including Ms. Tarkington and Mr. Finger. So I wanted to give you a sense of what our efforts have been to date and give you some updates on what has happened since September. The working group has met twice, on October 8th and November 6th. The chairman and the executive director of the Housing Authority were invited to and attended both of these meetings. At these meetings, we had detailed discussions with the Housing Authority on a number of items, and I'll give you some highlights. The first is we reviewed this complicated set of transactions that were entered into in 1995 in order to fund the renovation of Parsonage Cottage. And as you recall, at that time, a limited partnership vehicle was set up, the Parsonage Cottage Senior Residence Limited Partnership, and 3 sources of funding were turned into 3 loans to the partnership in order to attract equity investments from 2 entities affiliated with Edison Capital. Edison, if you don't already know, is a California public utility. These entities then invested in the partnership and used low-income housing tax credits, and this type of use of credits and investment is allowed by federal tax law. And just to refresh, those 3 sources of funding that were turned into loans were a town loan that would have been a town appropriation, a grant through the CDBG federal program, also turned into a loan, and a group of private donations also turned into a loan. We also discussed with the Housing Authority the purpose of their original application, which was to create enough cash flow in this partnership to fund new capital improvements that they see in the pipeline in the next few years at Parsonage Cottage. And this, of course, is a goal I think we all want to see achieved, both on the BET and in the working group. We also discussed the partnership's overall financial position, specifically their cash flow, and we learned that they could start to fund these new capital improvements if they could get their annual debt service on these loans below $50,000. We also discussed a number of other areas of diligence that the working group, together with Peter Minarski, Amina Ahmad, and Princess, are conducting, and those include insurance, title policy, sewer taxes, and the audits that the Housing Authority conducts for its various entities. We also discussed a number of issues associated with the financing by an outside commercial lender who would take a security interest in the town lease on Parsonage, and as you recall, that was discussed in connection with the CD3 package. We also heard from Assistant Town Attorney Ahmad, who was able to review all of the documents received from the Housing Authority to date. We have really met and worked on this every single week since September, and I do want to thank again Pete and Amina and Princess and the rest of the working group for all their work on this item. So the new development is the following. At the Budget Committee meeting in September and at the full BET meeting in September, there were a number of questions raised by this board about the valuation of the limited partnership interests, which we were told were about to be sold by the limited partners to the Housing Authority. However, on October 18th, that sale took place. The Housing Authority purchased the 99.9% limited partnership interests in this partnership from Edison Capital for $161,016, which makes the Housing Authority the limited partner now in this partnership, and the Town Hall Annex Corporation continues as the general partner. We asked at our second meeting of the working group Ms. Ahmad for her view of this transaction, and her observation was that this sale is a, quote, reorganization under the promissory notes and the loan documents relating to the town loan and the CDBG loan, which amount to a technical default under both of these loans. No one on the working group or Ms. Ahmad is suggesting that the town should now call these loans, but rather we want to work constructively with the Housing Authority to resolve all of our outstanding issues. So where are we now? At our November 6th meeting, the working group agreed to give the Housing Authority a draft letter with the working group's recommendation to the full BET. And we discussed this draft letter verbally in detail, and we gave them a copy with Mr. Yankovic and Mr. Tony Johnson. And essentially that letter recommends that the BET modify both the CDBG loan and the town loans to the partnership in order to bring the partnership's annual debt service below this $50,000 level that we discussed. And there'll be appropriate and reasonable covenants contained in the loan modification documents. This letter also requests the Housing Authority comply with outstanding document requests in order for the working group and the full BET and our staff in Town Hall to conduct basic due diligence that I think we all believe we're responsible to conduct in this matter. Right now, we are working with outside bond counsel to identify appropriate maturity and interest rates for these modified loans. And we hope to finalize these terms shortly, and we hope to send this letter formally to the Housing Authority this week. I should also add that at our last working group meeting, Mr. Yankovic suggested that he bring this new alternative to CD3 to his board. He thought that was a good idea. We thought that was a good idea and a good predicate to further steps on this application. And I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I'd like to thank all four members of the working group for the very, very hard work that you've done and very, very good work in a very unique and challenging situation for the board and for the town and probably for the Housing Authority. I just want to make one observation. I asked a question in the Budget Committee meeting back in September, and that was pertaining to, I think, for light of day purposes, it would be very good for the public, as well as certainly for this board, to know what the economics of this deal actually were now that the deal has closed out. And in light of your report, as I understand it, Edison Capital has now been bought out of the deal, so in a sense there is a termination value, and we know what that is. But I think it would be very beneficial to always look at done deals and learn from them. I think it would be beneficial for the Finance Department and for this board if in the future there's ways in which we can structure something that work for the common good. I don't think that we should be afraid of that. I think that we should be embracing that. But in order to do that, you need to understand what has happened in the past. And I would hope that this question wouldn't just simply kind of go by the roadside, because it really is very important in terms of understanding what happened, what the economics were, and how we as a board can benefit from a lesson learned going forward.
Anyone else? I'll say thank you a little bit later on for the commitment on that one. Real quick, Mr. Johnson's not here, but on Central Firehouse, I know the bids are out. Not due back in till, I think they're still going to be out for another month and a half to 2 months, and then there's the review period on those. Everything's coming together on that one. That's the only one I know. New business, I had nothing. Mr. Finger, did you have something?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. What I'd like to just bring up in front of this board is a topic that's been getting a lot of play in the news media and was a featured article in Sunday's Greenwich Time, and that's the issue of charter change. And I'd like to address my comments specifically as it relates to charter change dealing with the BET. As I think everybody or most everybody in this board is familiar with, there is a section of the charter, 67A, dealing with home rule procedures. And I'd like to read the first portion of 67A. A proposal for home rule action affecting the Board of Estimate and Taxation or the Finance Department of the town government may be initiated only, I emphasize only, by affirmative vote of 7 members of the Board of Estimate and Taxation. Other proposals can be dealt with by affirmative vote of the Board of Selectmen. But as it relates to the BET, the charter is clear, only 7. Only can be amended by 7 members of the BET. So referencing the article in the Greenwich Time, we had the first selectman and one of the selectmen weighing in on their opinions as to how we go about being elected. Had the chairman of the Republican Town Committee and the chairman of the Democratic Town Committee weigh in about how elections are held and what they would like to do. I think it's imperative for this board to get out in front of that, as we are the only ones that can affect, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of others, how we are elected. That being said, I recognize that there is a large desire on the part of members of the community of Greenwich, the electorate, that there be choice in the way we are elected. And I think that has merit. But I also think that this board has benefited over the last 70-some-odd years by the good governance of a bipartisan, balanced board. And I think we should do whatever we can to maintain that bipartisan, balanced board framework. In a little bit of history, in 2004, there was a committee of the Law Committee, actually, Mr. Walko and Ed Crummick were both members of the Law Committee at that time, and they studied the possible changes in the way the BET would go about being elected. They concluded, or the result of that was a recommendation of, I believe a recommendation or observation, that it would be appropriate to consider what I'll call the Board of Ed model for elections. Maintains a balanced board, but it does allow choice for the electorate. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I took the liberty of marking up a proposal that was in front of the BET in 2004 that does give the electorate choice. It would increase the term of BET members from 2 to 4 years in staggered elections, again following the Board of Education model. It gives choice in that there could be or would be the opportunity for more candidates than the number of seats available for the electorate to choose from. I've tweaked it a little bit and limiting the number of votes to just the number of seats that can be elected by a particular party. But I don't want to get bogged down in the details. What I would ask is that, if appropriate, I'd like to make a motion to put this proposal on the table as a first read, if that's appropriate, so that this board, at our next meeting, can have a full discussion of this issue, hopefully leading towards a vote that would provide for voter choice, but maintain the balanced board of the BET, all in accordance with Section 67A of the Charter Home Rule.
I would second that motion, Mr.
So
Chairman.
let me just chime in. I can't consider anything tonight as the first read for, I could consider looking at the item and consider next month the first read because we don't have it. So I think that would be in keeping with, with normal. If I had something where I could put in a package where we have a chance to, review it and then call it a first read next month and then go to the month after that. It's funny you should say that. I expect another submission coming from one of the caucuses here that would do that and possibly expand even further. So I think,
May I assist the chair and make a motion that the consideration of this motion be postponed to our next meeting, which I believe is on the 16th of December.
right, and I'm thinking of the timeline to be fair to the 25% of the board that's coming in, that is this a January, but it certainly doesn't matter. This should be circulated to our members either way. I mean, there'll be another proposal coming from our caucus, which might have some similarities in that, but I think it'll also have some other stuff. I happened to be there in 2004 for this. I was on the BET then, and it was quite lengthy. There are more changes available than what meets the eye. There's the staggered terms. There's the 4-year term issue. There's the maximum by state law to go 8 and 4, but you could do 7 and 5. You could do 6 and 6. Those are the limitations in the Connecticut general statutes on this. And I do have all the documentation on it. And what I'm actually going to do is, if I can have that, I'm going to actually ask if Peter would take that and get that electronically to all of us, number one. Number two, I have it, but I was going to say dig out everything from 2004 because we had a series of very clear motions, and this way we can put them on the table.
Respectfully, Mr. Chairman, my motion to postpone this to the 16th requires a second, and if seconded, it requires a vote. I don't know if there's been a second of my motion.
Second.
Okay, motion seconded.
And again, I think
Discussion on the motion to,
I just want to ask a question. Is it your intention to put it on the December agenda as a first read?
Well, mostly I've just moved to postpone the consideration of the motion. It can be continued again and again and again, whatever's
Right, I
the pleasure
understand.
of the body. For the moment, it just seemed appropriate not to try and be dialoguing this at this meeting. What the body wishes to do going forward, the body will decide as it goes forward. My motion doesn't anticipate that. My motion merely asks that the consideration of this motion
Be postponed till December. Period.
Postponed to December 16th, which I think
Okay.
is the date of our next meeting.
further discussion on the motion to postpone? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 11-0, abstaining? 11-0-0. But I still would ask.
Yeah,
that-
I'd be more than happy to
Right.
give you a copy. I have, again, I took the liberty of making many copies, so
I
if
did
somebody
not-
wants to
yeah.
pick up a hard copy, that's fine. I'll give
Right.
Peter
I'll take one.
copy, you a copy.
I will tell you also, as you think about this, I'm looking at Mr. Raymer, one of the challenges you have to actually have dates when you're going to start the staggered terms. It was quite complex. And if I can find all that stuff, I'll share it with you so you, because it was
Thank you.
some logistics there.
We would benefit from that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else under new business? Old business? Approval of BET regular minutes for October 29th, 2013.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 11-0-0. Mr. Norton, do you have anything tonight?
No, I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Kiernan? I have one tonight. As we that last item sort of is a good segue into this. As we get into the close of this term, a couple things. For the people who are not returning to us, it would be appreciated if you get your iPads back into Elaine. I'd like to set up, I would like to get Mr. Brady, before he runs away, to convert them over for our three.
Mark being in the Caribbean sounds pretty good.
John Blankley got me in the hallway. He goes, "Where's my iPad?" Okay, and he deserves one. Nancy Weissler asked me, "Can I get this iPad?" I'm like, "Well, okay." Some of you don't even have fingerprints on yours.
Mine's already been turned in.
So with that said, I would ask Mr. Bob if you could please help us get them sort of running and ready to go. So we have those. Okay. It's been a long month, obviously, with the elections and what have you, and the extra meetings and debates and what have you. Thankfully, that's over. As it was said before, some of you are working on some pretty big topics, and they're requiring a great deal of time. I said in caucus, the Parsonage Cottage meetings and email trail is amazing. I just can't thank that group. Some of the building committee members are really involved right now. I know Leslie's Misa's moving along, and I know Art's going to town up at Nathaniel Witherell in more ways than one. So with that, we need to also think about some of our responsibilities. I'll get back to the burn rate in a minute. I don't think there's anything more important than what we heard at the Budget Committee on the burn rate. Our spending is equal to last year with the exception of the added pension contribution, and yet our revenues seem to be halfway there at the 1/3 mark. That's what we're here for. I mean, this is positive. This is really going to make a difference for us. So I need everybody to mark their calendars for December 18th. There's 3 BET members that are retiring, and you'll be getting an email this week for a sort of a social event. I would call it an outright something else, but we're on public TV. So you'll be getting an email on that. That'll be a Wednesday night.
Affecting half of your board, that's the evening in which the Democratic Town Committee meets.
Back to the drawing board.
Sorry.
Oh, boy. I'll have more on that tomorrow.
I'll be glad to comment on which I would rather attend.
I guess, but we need to be mindful, though, holiday season, difficulty in getting venues, so.
We put a little work into this one. I have a partner on this from prior years' events, prior biennial year events.
And is this the biennial that
Yes.
we typically invite every other past BET member?
The invite is to current coming on board or those BET members who have served with one of us. So it's
going on.
yeah, and well, we don't. Once you're leaving, we forget. We don't have much use for you after you're quitting us. No, that's not true. So anyway, I'll work on that again. January 6th at 6 o'clock will be the BET organizational meeting. That's a very important night for everybody coming on board.
Did you say 6 o'clock?
Yes. Yes. I don't know why it was picked at 6, but I wrote 6, so I figure we'll go with that. That'll be an interesting meeting in the fact that we have to obviously get sworn in. We have appoint the controller, assessor. We have an FOI update that evening. Committee. It's a fairly busy night, and it's for that purpose only. And then on January 15th, I think Mary Lee and I are attending a League of Women Voters Forum on the CIP process. So there's still quite a few things going on, so we're still reaching out. And I think it's good for our board to do that, to explain to people how the CIP works and how we handle different things. So I look forward to that. Other than that, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. The holidays are here. Hopefully we're not going to be going like last year, still recovering from Sandy and what have you. So with that, Mr. Brady.
I will adjourn.
Mr. Goldrick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?